Theodore. He's a tugboat and a friendly tugboat too. A friendly tugboat too. Oh, Theodore likes to do the things that friendly tugboats do. Pushing and a pulling in the great big harbor, in the great big world is so much fun. So many brand new things to discover. Waking with the sun, gotta get the job done. Oh, Theodore and Emily, Bodak, Hank and George, and the harbor master too.
So the episode opens up with the Big Harbor in the middle of a big freeze. And of course, work never stops, whatever the weather. Funny, I would have thought work would be backed up if it's that big of a freeze they so claim. But in any case, Theodore, George, and Hank had just finished their work when they all heard a strange noise coming from behind the rocks.
"It sounds," said Hank, "like a giant shark." But George floated forward. "Oh, giant sharks don't bother brave tugs like us." Then he slowed down a little just in case it was a giant shark. The creaky sound was getting louder and louder. Yes, something was appearing, and it was appearing from around Shipwreck Rock. At first, the tugs could only see the very tip-top of the thing. It was all spiky and white. And then, slowly, it floated out. What is that?" said Theodore, who could hardly speak. "That's probably just a rusty old wreck covered in ice," snorted George. Now, the tugs could see an anchor, all covered in ice and snow. "It's a ship!" shouted Hank. "If it is a ship," said Theodore, "we should help it into our harbor."
Haha, kudos to Graham for sneaking in that little Jaws theme. Anyhow, I'm a bit weirded out how that ship just appeared out of nowhere. How long was it actually floating there? By the look of how tall the icicles are, I'd say more than a few days. Well, whatever it was, the tugs helped it into the harbor, but no matter what they said, the ship never responded. At that point, everyone thought the ship was for nothing. But Theodore tried a different approach.
"Hello," he called. "My name is Theodore. I helped bring you into the harbor, remember?" The ice ship was silent, except for its creak, creak, creak sound. "Maybe he can't hear me because of all the ice," Theodore thought. "I was just wondering, what is your name?" It seemed to Theodore that the ice ship creaked just a little bit louder, as if he wanted to tell him something. "Come on, Theodore," said George. "That old ship is good for nothing, and we have important work to do." "I have to go now," Theodore said to the ice ship. "But I'll come visit tomorrow if you like." "Okay," smiled Theodore. "I'll see you tomorrow." Theodore didn't know why, but he felt that underneath all that cold ice on the ship was a nice warm engine, and just maybe a friend.
Well, that could definitely be a possibility, despite what everyone thinks. But unfortunately, everyone else thought the ship was good for nothing. So the dispatcher ordered Theodore and Hank to move it to the junk dock, much to Theodore's dismay. That's when he decided that he and Hank would find a way to show everyone they were wrong. So the two pulled it into a small cove and waited for the ice to melt. Yeah, we're going to be here a few millennia.
Well, the tugs waited, and waited, and waited. And the ice ship did begin to melt. Drip. By drip. By drip. "Wake up, Hank," tooted Theodore. "Did he melt yet?" yawned Hank. "Almost," frowned Theodore. "One icicle melted." "Great," said Hank. "Only about a zillion billion more to go." The tugs heard a sharp whistle. It was Pearl, the pilot boat. "You're supposed to be taking that ship to the junk dock," said Pearl. "You better get going."
As great as a plan that was, they really would have been waiting there all winter for that ship to melt. I certainly wouldn't want to wait for a zillion billion icicles to melt. Hey, it was a good try, though. But now that Pearl showed up, the tugs had no choice but to take the ice ship to the junk dock, but they kept bumping into each other trying to hurry, which made the ice ship creak, as if it was laughing. And that gave Theodore another idea.
"All we have to do is make him laugh some more. If he laughs, I bet he'll shake off all that ice." "But," said Hank, "how do we make him laugh?" "You can do it," shouted Theodore. "You always make everyone laugh. Sure, said Hank. Hank made his silliest face. Theodore and Hank laughed and laughed, and once again, the ice ship creaked, even louder this time. Hank decided to do his very funniest thing. He rolled his eyes and went around and around in a circle, tooting his whistle. Theodore went racing right behind him, tooting his whistle and hooting with laughter. Hank was so excited, he bumped right into Theodore again. Hank, frowned Theodore, well, that's not funny. Well, the most incredible thing happened. The ice ship creaked and creaked, shaking more and more ice off himself, a little at first, and then in great big chunks. And as he laughed and laughed, he shook and shook, and you know what? It wasn't long before all the ice was gone.
Oh, so it is alive. Well, that's a relief. I mean, look at the beautiful ship that was underneath all that ice. Seems like the outside was more deceiving than what was inside. Who knew that a few laughs would shake off all that ice? By the way, thanks for the meme face, Hank. So now that the ship was revealed, introductions were in order.
Top of the morning to you, tugboats. You sure are funny. Theodore and Hank, they could only stare at the ship in amazement. Allow me to introduce myself, said the ship. My name is Seamus, and I'm a sea trawler. My name is Tugboat, and I'm a Hank, said Hank, who was so surprised to see such a beautiful ship he couldn't even speak properly. How did you get all covered in ice? Asked Theodore. I was fishing way out on the cold North Sea when a big storm came along and covered me up stem to stern in ice. Now, if it wasn't for you tugs making me laugh so hard, I'd probably be frozen all winter long. In the junk dock, shivered Hank. And then the tugs remembered. They were supposed to be moving Seamus to the junk dock. Well, said Seamus, I don't think I'm ready for any junk dock. He looked like an old good-for-nothing ship with all that ice on him, said Pearl. But underneath, I can see he's really a fine ship. We don't need to take him to the junk dock.
Think this is where that don't judge a book by its cover ordeal will kick in right about now. Again, looks can be deceiving until given that golden opportunity to show who you really are. With that said, Seamus wouldn't be going to the junk dock. Instead, Theodore and Hank brought him back to the Great Ocean Dock, where things seemed to click with George.
Well, I thought you were just a rusty wreck, smiled George. What's all that stuff on your deck? Oh, well, that's my special equipment, Georgie, replied Seamus. It helps me find my way around when I'm out in the ocean all alone for months at a time. All alone on the ocean for months? Gasped George. You're really brave. Can you tell me some of your ocean stories? Ah, sure, said Seamus, with a hearty smile in his voice. If you show me the way out of the harbor, I've got fishing to do. Well, you didn't have to ask George twice. George showed Seamus the way out of the Big Harbor, and all the way those two talked about some of the ocean adventures they'd had. All the tugs were sad to see Seamus leave, but the saddest one of all was George. Toodaloo, Georgie, tooted Seamus. Goodbye, Seamus, whistled George. George watched his new friend leave. What a great ship, he said softly to himself. What a great ship.
And that concludes Theodore and the Ice Ship. This is another one of those episodes that you really need to look deeply into. Seeing everyone jump the gun with Seamus thinking he was good for nothing can be pointed out in today's society. If you think about it, many children and adults are often excluded because of how they act and look. It's on us when we fail to realize that looks can be deceiving at first before getting to know them fully. Again, kind of where that whole don't judge a book by its cover lesson comes into play. Which is what Theodore and Hank proved once everyone saw what a fine ship Seamus really was. I feel like this was a very important message the writers had to get across, and it worked amazingly. Other than our normal cast, viewers are introduced to Seamus, and they weren't lying when they said he was a beautiful ship. And if I'm correct, that Irish sort of accent Denny gives him, I think suits him perfectly. Sadly though, we will not be hearing from him again, since this is Seamus' only speaking role in the series. What I especially loved in this episode was the music. It's always so much fun to hear those wintry twists on some of the themes. So you can definitely tell Graham had some fun with this one. I'd say my favorites were probably the Jaws reference, Theodore and Hank waiting, and Seamus's theme. And as for visuals, while our primary focuses were the Great Ocean Dock and the Little Cove, there's just something about the winter sets that make them so breathtaking to look at. This is another of Season 3's best, and I would recommend giving it a watch. Next up is Big Harbour Fool's Day.